Hello everybody and welcome to our stream here. I am Colin and I am the DM for Legend of Arcana, which is one of the main campaigns that we'll be streaming here on this channel here, on top of some other different things that are coming out of the chute here shortly. So basically, to get going, we are going to talk over a couple things about what we're doing here for basically the campaign, the stream, different kind of basically stuff that we're looking into. So with that said, I am going to kind of dive into it. So we got this campaign going and we started the stream perhaps first couple steps into part 2 of a 5-part series campaign. And in October, actually, very beginning of October, we'll have hit a year mark on this. So we decided to start streaming a little bit late into the campaign. Outside of that, we have already played through campaign 1 previous years, and so this is the second of the campaign. And kind of what the Thursday streams are going to be is typically we're going to go over a 10-minute period or less about kind of updates, mechanics, DM tricks that I participate in myself. Then we're going to go over kind of 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes worth of lore, different types of lore that I've come up with in the homebrew world and homebrew setting. And then 5 to 10 minutes looking at maybe an NPC that is in the campaign that regularly seems to make their way to the setting. So with that said, we'll dive right into it. So for DM mechanics, we're going to start round 1. This is also going to be our first podcast session here as well. And so I'm going to go over some updates. As a DM, man, there's been a lot that I've been learning about, in particular, how to set up a stream, how to move the cameras, even lighting I'm still playing with here. And then, of course, we haven't found an exact home for necessarily the table and the cameras to be at this point. But it's a learning process. And when I say yes to something, I think many DMs can agree that you basically dive in headfirst and you give pretty much 90 to 110% of yourself into it. So learning this streaming stuff has been massively fun. There's been some frustrating moments, but there's also been some moments that have been really rewarding, like doing this tonight. And then figuring out basically different aspects of the stream. And I find myself enjoying that on top of what my players will allow me to do. So that is evolving, and kind of an update is we'll probably get some more media posted in the future about what's coming here shortly. So probably not this next session that we're going to, well, it depends. We got kind of two updates. This channel is going to run two different campaigns. And in the future, another DM will be running the alternate Sunday that I would be otherwise off. I'm a player in that, but even if I wasn't, I'd be willing to obviously do some of the computer stuff as I'm learning and trying to dial it in. So if that happens, we'll have a stream this upcoming Sunday, and then the alternate Sundays back to our Arcana of Alstaria, or Legends of Alstaria. And basically, sorry, I was just thinking about a stream thing, and I just remembered I hadn't changed the title for this. So that is something that I will have to think about in the future. Anyhow, with that said, we'll alternate Sundays. You'll get a campaign of some sort. They'll be in two different playlists at some point, so you'll be able to tune into which one you enjoy. Outside of that, as a DM thing, I'm always looking for different ways to immerse my characters, but also make the campaign seem to go a little bit smoother for mechanics, ease for myself, since I'm now scrambling to do a whole bunch more. I also have to think about ease for myself when I'm communicating with my players. And so, proud to announce that, excited to announce that me and a couple of the players will be building one of those cool D&D tables that you have maybe seen on the internet, and we will be documenting different parts of the process with that. So eventually we will have a table that has a TV laid in the board that players can throw their dice around and have the space that they feel like will be more immersive. And then, of course, other aspects like charging ports, cup holders, laptop, iPad holders. So there's going to be some cool stuff attached to it. And super excited to get that built. That should be hopefully not obviously tomorrow or this weekend, but it will be coming up near the, let's see here. That's not going to let me do it. We should be building around the 23rd of September, and then be playing on it at least as a table, and might not have the TV function shortly on the session on the 24th. Okay, with that said, we're going to move into a little bit of lore about the Legend of Arcana. And I've decided tonight, since this is one of the first sessions for this stream on Thursdays, is that we're going to kind of take a look at what's happened so far. And as this series continues, then I'll be able to announce a little bit more. So at the beginning, like I was saying, there's 5 different parts. And at the beginning, we kind of had the players group up for a session 0, or where I paired them up. And basically, session 0 allowed 2 players to level 0 to 3. So when we started the campaign, the players were already at level 3. I did 3 separate sessions, and then we wound up together, and we're at a city called Darkfen. In our world, for Alera, which is the main whole world, Alstaria. So, Legend of Alstaria. Alstaria is the whole world, and we were specifically looking at the continent Mersta. Now, Mersta has several major cities that belong kind of to the different races in D&D. And so what's happening at that world state when the players are all headed towards Darkfen is that 50 years prior to the start of the campaign, the High Elves rallied together all the different races to basically vanquish and ban the dragons from this particular realm. In doing so, one of the main leaders, Avos the Conqueror, a High Elf, decided that he wasn't so keen on relinquishing control. And so he's been, for the last 10 years, been waging kind of a silent war against anybody that isn't a High Elf, a race of High Elf. In doing so, eventually he coerced or convinced, it's not set in stone with the party yet, but basically he convinced the Wood Elves to join him on his side, and they decided to be subservient to the High Elves, as they believed that he and the High Elves would be the victors in this war. So Darkfen is kind of the start of this campaign, and for us, Darkfen is in the northwest of Mersta, and it's surrounded by a forest that is full of typical dark creatures. So eventually our players make their way through it, and it's basically Resistance headquarters ground zero. In fact, the two main leaders of the Resistance are hosting a large meeting. In this meeting, it is Gallivantar, who himself is also a High Elf, but he does not believe in what Avos the Conqueror is doing. So Gallivantar, essentially, with his friend Elvant, both defect and have been pushing the Resistance to fight against the High Elves for some time now. It's only been in the last 10 years that the Wood Elves, 5-10 years, that the Wood Elves have basically turned against the other races. And so the High Elves, with the help of the Wood Elves, have pushed most of the races back into either the Darkmere Forest or to Darkfen. So our players eventually meet up. They go to this large meeting, and basically Gallivantar, who is adorned typically in silver armor, has silver hair, and Elvant, who's typically adorned in gold armor, gold hair, both said that there are these tomes that we know Avos the Conqueror is trying to get. And because of this, basically, if he gets access to these tomes, then he's going to be able to unseal the dragons. And it almost seems to them that Avast may have a pact with one of the head honcho dragons. So they've already collected some data on some, adventurers that aren't necessarily participating in the war itself, but that can be utilized to track down and hunt down these tomes. And so basically in that, they've got pictures, a list of the players' characters, and point them out in a crowd. And that is how we kind of get the campaign started and rolling. So, world state lore wise, dragons are typically bad. There's some exceptions with it, but there's more to learn on that for the campaign as it currently sits. And basically, to catch up a little bit more with the time that I've got remaining on this section, is that the party was able to locate the tomes. But as they turned in the last one, Avast was able to send in some sort of spy or something. It's not confirmed at this point who or what it was that basically sent somebody to damage and also damage the location and then collect the tomes that were needed. And so the party comes up on a massively destroyed holding area where these tomes were, and then they find a pathway portal to where Avast is, and they open that up and they fight. Not Avast. Avast is there merging the tomes together basically to release the dragons, and he's created a barrier between him and the party, and in between is one of the stooges that is there to fight them. And so there was an encounter, and basically the encounter ends with the party seeing that the person in the way, who's actually going to be our one NPC that we'll talk about here in a little bit, decides to dive off the side of the platform, and it's not confirmed if he's still living or alive at this point. Vost is able to open up the portal, and all the dragons that were sealed are now back in the material realm. He rides off on a black dragon, or at least it looks black at this point to the party members, and flies off into the distance. Right as the portal is about to close, a tiny little white dragon flies out. And this is notable because you'll hear one of the players that rolled high enough to see the white dragon fly out is obsessed with the white dragon. And it's not confirmed fully who, what, or when this dragon kind of is. With our remaining time, basically, part 2 then happens, and a month after that event, the dragon's coming back. The players are set up with, well, what now do we do? And so basically the tomes and the previous seal was always meant to be a temporary seal. However, by collecting the 7 swords of power, there is 2 parts of a true seal that could seal the dragons away. And so that is what the party is currently going after, is these 2 different seals. One seal is locked in the Fey realm, which requires 1 sword to unlock to be able to grant access into the Fey realm. And then the 6 other swords are all needed in combination to open up to head into the Chaos realm, where the other half of the seal is. So hopefully the party in part 2 will be able to find these seals and use them and utilize them. Then for today, for our NPC, and he might be the focal point for more than one session here, but let me go ahead and pull up who we'll be looking at. Okay. So I like running off of a sheet of some sort for a notable NPC. And basically, for me, I like my NPCs to have checks and different stats, and basically make it so it's a real player versus other players in any of the skills or even combat. And so, and then usually, depending where we're at in the campaign, equip them with different items that I would associate with the character having. So, we're going to talk about NightBlade. So, NightBlade is one of the characters that the party ran into fairly early on in the campaign. I think before even Tome 1 of the 3 tomes was found. And basically, there was a couple spells that were thrown at him, and he didn't behave in the normal mechanics that one would expect. And so it wasn't a true encounter because while there was a round or two of combat, basically he has the ability to teleport, and teleport quite a distance. Sometimes you hear us refer to it as bamfing out. And so NightBlade basically confronts the party. He is a high elf and a wizard class, at least at this point in time in his life. And he's helping Avast and feels obligated to Avast and feels what Avast is doing, Avast the Conqueror is doing, is right, because kind of like an Anakin thing, he believes it will bring order to the realm. And so he's out there kind of trying to stop the party and kind of warns them, hey, maybe you should back off. And then they don't. And so eventually they wind up in a confrontation, and they fight against him in the end of part 1, and that was the character that I was saying isn't confirmed alive or dead at this point. He has very much decided to take a leap off of the arena that they were fighting in, and it's not confirmed. So NightBlade, for me, has some importance. He is based off of a lot of my personal NPCs that coincidentally will also make it into some books that I'm writing. Basically, are somebody that I know that I'm basing off of, and this is an important person that I'm basing it off of, and kind of what I could envision his younger self being. And so it's been very fun to have this character. And this is a character that was also in our campaign 1, but obviously, well, I guess not obviously, I haven't told everybody. So campaign 1 actually is 500 years in the future from here. So when we did campaign 2, we took a step back in time about 500 years. And so this is the younger self of a character, and maybe we'll go into more of what he is in the future. But basically, NightBlade typically is described as wearing a long brown cloak, having some sort of a silver sword, which is why he has a greater silver sword, and is known to have wildly impressive spells in lore-wise. You can see it. I haven't touched this page because when he was first fighting, he didn't need that many spells, so obviously the page isn't updated here for what I'd expect for wildly impressive spells. But he basically, the lore about NightBlade is that he's dangerous because canonically in the world, for me, he was always strongest from the moment that he was born. And so every time that he chooses to use magic, he technically gets a little bit weaker. So if he never used magic all the way until he was fully trained and mastered all the spells, I don't think any character or whatnot would be able to touch him. But in the mechanics, he's kind of a bit of a teenager, kind of a hothead, and out there to prove himself. And so
basically he has used magic, and he doesn't fully understand yet that it is taking away from his max potential as a spellcaster. But he's also a fairly good swordsman, and is a bit rough around the edges in either of the campaigns, but he definitely makes some strides. And we see him on kind of this, I don't even want to call him an anti-hero, but he almost has that vibe, and I think my players would chime in if they could, that while he was an important NPC in Campaign 1, that he was still frustrating at times. And that's a great word for a Nightblade, is that he can be frustrating. He seems to appear when the players hopefully aren't expecting it, if I'm doing my job right, or to be kind of the background thought that, oh, this dude may be around and we might have to contend with him. So, with that said, Nightblade, again, currently as the campaign sits, they don't know what's happened to him. There isn't word, nor has been super asked about. And so we're basically trying to showcase that this character will potentially be back in our campaign at some point. As a little bit of spoilers if any of my players end up watching the stream. I think that is all I have to do. For this first of these series sessions. And so I thank you for your time if you stop by the stream. If you're watching later on YouTube, super appreciate it. I would appreciate a like or a follow if you're willing to do so. If not, we've got other platforms too. I know not everybody wants to sit and watch a video, especially just a guy talking or people talking and whatnot. So we'll also be making this available via podcast, and just super excited to get that out and about. So we will see you either this Sunday or the following Sunday, and I will see you for next Thursday's stream regardless. Anyhow, thank you for your time. Have a good night.